Hey y'all, welcome back. We are here with part two of our conversation with Miss Pat. Oh my goodness. She dropped so many gems in the first episode. So check the first episode out if you want to get all the goodness. You can't just take half of it. You gotta get all of it? Um, but I'll start with the word of the day just in case you need a reminder. And then we'll jump into more conversation with Miss Pat after this. Word of the day is if you look at what you have in life, you'll always have more. If you look at what you don't have in life, you'll never have enough. So let us know in the comment section what you think about this, how that impacts your own life. We would love to chat back and forth with you. But let's get back into this conversation because
Mhm.
whew, so deep, so good, and so informational. Ms. Pat, I have a question, okay? Because in society, we often subscribe certain labels to the type of people that would be in a situation of suicide. We
Mm,
think we know who would do that, right? And sometimes we get hit with a huge shocker when we see people that have had, quote unquote, have it all and have everything that we would think would secure their happiness and their joy in life. And then we hear on the news or we hear on social media that they're gone and they've
mhm,
taken their life.
mhm.
Can you kind of dispel some of these myths for us to educate us on how um who are who are the faces of people that do this? Have we gotten it wrong? And are we looking at the wrong measures of joy and happiness in people's lives?
Wow, wow. That's a great question
Yes.
because the faces of suicide, it it ranges. When they talk about the spectrum,
Mhm.
it comes from those who, and we know of the more affluent individuals that have died by suicide
Mm,
Yes.
because told they're spoken about it on the news, and then
mhm.
their families begin to unveil some of the struggles that they've had, because just because one person is looking and appearing as though they're happy and finding joy, many are then struggling
Yeah.
within their own within their own selves with depression and anxiety, because those are the two main causes why, in terms of mental health, why those who might attempt and or die by suicide, there's a presence of depression and anxiety. And
Mm.
depression and anxiety, again, crosses all geographics, all economic spectrums, right? And then, but we don't hear about is those that have died by suicide and they're your neighbor. It's
Right.
your
Mm,
coworker who may not have the fame in this world that we see every day on the news, but they have their own fame within their family. And
mm,
right, and so the impact that that individual's death has ripples as well. So we see the
mhm.
rippling of the older, I mean, or the more affluent individual,
Yeah.
but we don't see the ripple in those everyday folks, your neighbor, your coworker, someone that a friend knows, a friend of a friend.
Yeah.
Mm,
Um, and so, but the common denominator on all those spectrums is that there was a level of despair. There
Mm.
was a
mm,
level of depression, anxiety, sadness, and not, and many, not feeling as though they wanted to be on this earth any longer.
Yeah.
Just thinking about most recently, um the actress's son, and it's not coming to me right
yeah.
now.
Regina King?
Regina King, I mean, what she said, I mean, it was like so powerful. And so for somebody who's in that work, I said, she got it. Her son no longer wanted to be here.
That's what she said.
That's what she said.
Had
Mm.
all the love, support, the money, the everything.
The everything, the everything. And then I know, individuals, young people who are saying the same thing.
Mhm.
So then the second part of the question is then how do we give those who are still with us, what can we do to support them so that they don't look to do the same thing?
Mm.
Yeah.
And, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention is big on educating. And we do that in a variety of different ways.
Mm.
Now you
Uh,
guys have these walks that you do, Miss Pat. Can you tell me what
yes.
the purpose? I mean, what is that? How does that help in this fight?
Sure. So the Westchester Mid Hudson region I think we have 6 or 7 walks. Each county has its own walk, and then I
Yes.
think there's two counties that walk together.
Mm-hmm.
And Maria has set that up so that those in those respective counties can come together with their community partners, with those families who have lost one from suicide,
Mm.
or those who have had their own lived experience, to kind of come together on that day to just talk to each other. It's like a big support group as
Yeah.
we walk and stroll. And then also, we raise a little money
Mm-hmm.
to then help in the research, then help and support the programming that goes on,
Yeah.
in the community. So our work schedule will begin in September, and then we end in October. And folks can really look at our website, afsp.org, and then click on your chapter, and then the walk dates are already on the website.
Yeah.
And we just welcome people to come and join us on this day. We have different activities that's going on. We'll have resources, various community partners throughout the county mental health and youth development, and first responders. They'll all have resources then to give to the community.
Mm.
Listen, guys, they need volunteers, and you don't have to pay anything to volunteer. And so one of the things I want to say here, and I'm going to take this plug for myself as well.
Mhm.
Sometimes you can grow up with resources around you that repeat themselves that you no longer use.
Mhm.
So in the Hudson Valley, there are always events, and you can grow accustomed to it being there and think you get nothing out of it. I do not want you guys to have that perspective
Right.
when it comes to these walks.
Mhm.
So I'm being careful here, but those who are truly listening understand what I mean. So there is this particular walk we're talking about. There's also the March of Dime for the babies. There is
Mhm.
the cancer walks. Please, if you can, please show up. I just said if you can. Just because it comes every year, don't disregard it. Because how do you not know that even if you don't directly impact your life, you could be saving someone else's by showing up? A conversation can change the whole picture for someone just because you walked with them. You don't know them, but somehow we had a great conversation and we finished what we set out to do in this walk, and you could save a life. I had to say it.
I appreciate that. Actually, tomorrow we're having what we call Hike for Hope. And that was really birthed from the data showing that there's been a rise of suicide in the construction industry.
Mm.
Right. And so a gentleman out of in that space has now partnered with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and many of the states and counties across the country will be participating in their own Hike for Hope. And I want to say this might be our second year doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And, Maria has sent out some recent data on it.
Mm-hmm.
We've got over 450 people walking Bear Mountain. It's going to be at the Bear Mountain, here in the Mid-Hudson region.
Wow.
Maybe 40 plus teams from across the definitely across the Mid-Hudson region and beyond.
Wow.
Again, to bring hope,
Yes.
to save lives,
Yes.
to educate and support. And, when people know of an issue that they're passionate about, a walk, to volunteer, to donate, $10, $20, that is like satisfying.
Yes.
That like helps them.
Yes.
As part of their cause.
Yes.
And meeting the mission of that organization. And here we're talking about AFSP.
And listen, let me do a connector here for you guys, because maybe I'll have someone in the back row. They're like, why are you always speaking on the back row, people? I don't know. I'm going to stop next episode, but it's on the back row for this. Here is something that connects, that we can start to see a part of the root. We've spoken about not raising children with entitlement issues. Do you know how you can stop that? If you go on these walks and you get educated and you do it as a family, and your child starts to humble him or herself because they now have education that what they got might be really, really good because others don't have, we might be able to get to some of the root cause. I mean, think about it. Let's do this thing as a family. Let's bring our children, let's expose them to certain things for them to get educated. And we can raise a generation that understands we're all in it together, whether we know it or not. And maybe we can impact two different parts of it.
Yeah, that is, wow, spot on. Because that's the common theme, when you go on these walks, if it's the AFSP walk, like you said, the March of Dimes, the Alzheimer's Association, the common denominator in the participants in those walks is that they've been impacted by that issue.
Yes.
Suicide, dementia.
Yes.
Right. And so you can easily have conversations with the person right next to you.
Yes.
Because that's the starter. And by the time you get to the end of that trail, by the time you get to the end of the walk, you have gained brand new friends.
Yes.
And you then exchange numbers. And before you know it, you will be finding yourself showing up and contacting them on the next event.
Yes.
On the next forum in the community. They tagged me, my coworker years ago would tag me, Pat, when Pat goes to a conference, when Pat goes somewhere, she comes back with 10 new friends.
I can see it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I'm always trying to find the common denominator.
Yes.
And when we can find that, how life can be so much easier for all of us.
Yes.
Right? And so in the space of suicide, the common denominator and the 10 new friends, I'm finding that when we're speaking, when we're training, and then it's not a training that's one and done, then the church, ministries will call me back and say, we want something else.
Yes.
We want a forum. We want a panel.
Yes.
And when that happens, that's when you know you've got impact. It's not one and done. It's you're doing it, you're giving them next steps, you're giving them the resources. They have met 30 new people, 35 people in that room during that 1 day training. And now they have now created their own network,
Yeah.
right, of mental health providers, of faith leaders to now bring it to their respective churches.
Yeah. And guys, another way to look at common denominator is everyone, we said this before, wants to be seen in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Remember that? So all of this is connecting back.
Yeah.
All right, Miss Sounds. Miss Sounds
Yeah.
got a couple more questions
Okay.
for us.
The
Yes.
wheels are turning. One of the call to action of AFSP, as you mentioned, is that suicide is preventable. And then you talk about education being a really big part of this call to, to the fight.
Yes.
And I am interested in in the conversation around prevention from the standpoint of how people can talk to people that they're in relationship with about how they're doing, right? So what we generally see is, hey, how you doing? I'm good, right? Or in the church setting, how you doing, sis? Blessed and highly favored, right? Like we don't have the language to really go deeper or even the time to slow down and really get into how's your life. So is there any education around conversation starters and conversations with other people so that it's not just surface?
Yes. So, that's the beauty of the education program division for AFSP, because that's exactly what they do. There's one educational program called Let's Save Lives or Talk Saves Lives. And it's the introduction to suicide prevention. And then it also provides you with talking points. Right. So that's one. The Safe Talk, which is also another educational program, 3 hours that we've been doing recently at colleges and universities in the Mid-Hudson region, where we talk about the signs and symptoms of mental health.
Yeah.
How does it look? And then the starter questions, and really asking it, talking to them about, are you, I see, right? So you're observing and you're listening as you're having this conversation with that individual, and then sort of validating what you're seeing and what you're hearing with that individual, and then going hard with the question. Are you thinking about suicide? Asking that question does not necessarily, the research shows that by asking that question does not mean that people are going to do it.
Okay.
Actually, asking that question opens the door for that individual then to say yes and or no. And when they say yes, then being prepared then to provide that safety bridge. Well, do you speak to anyone? Do you have a therapist? Who are you close to? Who can we call right now to help you build that safety plan? And then calling 988. That's a number that it's been rolled out now for a year or more, nationally. And you have people on the other end who will then provide resources to help move that individual to a safe space, and then on to ongoing treatment if that's necessary. The other thing that has also happened is in schools now and other public places, like schools and mental health clinics, etc., having assessments and certain questions being asked, so that allows for an opportunity to see if that individual is at risk. Yeah. And then providing the resources. And then the the preventable is really looking at our protective factors. What are our protective factors that will then reduce those who may have thoughts of suicide? And immediately our protective factors becomes our family, our traditions, our community, our church, and then, guiding that individual then to bring those protective factors back into their space, into their life, so that those protective factors then can help them, move through the next step, go beyond the thoughts that they may have. And when you speak to those who have had experience of suicide attempts, that's what they'll say.
Yeah.
It's the conversation.
Yeah.
It was the safety plan.
Yeah.
It was those protective factors that helped me through that journey.
Yeah. And risers, here's a plug, because I'm just hearing very, very, very loudly in the spirit today. Sometimes for us to have the conversation or for us to observe, you got to study the information as if you're checking yourself first.
Absolutely.
You have to, because it will help you in delivery and discernment. So if I think I know of someone that I want to have this conversation with, it is better that I study all of the education myself first, check me, make sure I'm clear before I approach. That's one thing. Here's a second thing. I'm going to flip this thing on its head, because I told y'all I'm here to disrupt in a positive way certain things we don't want to say. And I could do it by myself. According to my mama, I was single when I came out, okay? My brothers came out at a different time, so I was by myself. I have this rule in my house that my children, when I ask them how was their day, and they give me a 1 or 2 word syllable, I don't accept it. It was okay. It was good. I don't know what that means. That's what I say. I don't know what that means, because my good and your good may not be the same. Why am I saying this? Because as I listen to Miss Pat, there's a caution in my spirit that some of us as parents, whether we're overwhelmed or not, we receive those answers as if everything is fine. And it may not be, but how do we know if we don't even question the positive statements being said to us? I'm gonna wait. I don't accept them telling me. I want to know what that means. I want to know what that means. I'm a busy lady. I want to know what that means. So at that time, I've learned to stop. And sometimes I find out something went down at school because now I'm questioning what that meant. Had I not questioned, it'd have been a cover up. Oh, you heard me say it. So just because somebody said it positive, if you have influence in that person's life, dig a little deeper. How was your day? It was good. Do you really know what the person meant when they said good? Ask for a little bit more detail. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And Miss Pat, I wanted to ask if you ever encountered or heard of any instances where someone is dealing with, suicide ideation or possibly planning to harm themselves in some way or end their life, and the person that wants to help them feels hesitant to overstep, or they may have attempted and have been rejected by the person who wants to end their life. um what's the line between, when something is an emergency, it activates that fight or flight part of us, like, I need to do it now. I need to move in now. But then there's a level of care and, you know, delicacy that you also want to handle the situation with, because the emotions are very fragile. So what's the line with someone, you know, trying to help, but then they don't know how to help? Those kinds of things.
Yeah, no. Well, the reason why people are hesitant because they're afraid to ask the question.
Yeah.
And it's like the fear and the unknown. And certainly that individual who's observing the struggles of their friend or relative, they know something is going on. And they do want to ask and be helpful, but they're afraid of what that individual is going to say.
Yeah.
Because they're afraid that they may not give them the right information, first of all. And then the second thing is that their fear that that person will then reject them, and then they'll lose the person will lose trust.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you, and yes, both play out, no question about it. But I always, because see, now there's so much conversation about resources for individuals. The 988 number just immediately comes up, right? And so when that happens, when that individual, you know, approaches a friend who may have thoughts of suicide and they're observing things, that friend should at least be equipped to ask the question, be equipped to respond, to be able to respond to the answer more importantly.
Yeah.
And they don't have to be a therapist. They don't have to be a medical doctor. They could just be the person who has that one number, 988, calling on the spot, and the person on the other end is going to be the one who really will help them through the next stage. And now, you know, 988 is really pushing out on a national level with billboards and radio advertisement, and you hear, and television. So you're hearing it all the time. So now it's just part of the natural organic response.
Love that. I had a question about, so we have two more questions and then we'll wrap up. I have one. Let me not number Mrs. Sounds. He's smart. Okay, I had to get one chuckle in. What? Social media and or the media. Either way. They do not tend often to influence the conversation around suicide in a positive way. And when I say positive, risers, I am talking about giving solution rather than just the gory story and then that's it. That's what we get. We don't get solutions, resources, strategy. We get the awful story. And that's how we're forced to remember the episode of what has played out. How is AFSP doing work in terms of making sure that there is a better way of telling what can be done as a result of a suicidal attempt that was not successful or something that did end up in suicide because it could not have been stopped. And so it ended in that.
Right. Okay. So, you know, when people ask about the social media, I always say, well, I never saw that. Right. So it all depends on what we follow.
True.
Right. And in the social media space. And, you know, AFSP has great vendors or advertisers or individuals that they have contracted with to bring the awareness on the social media platform. And they have a whole social media team that works along with some great folks, young and old, to bring those messages. Most recently, they have partnered with various radio stations, Awkward, to do just that. And so that's one way. The second way is when there is a suicide, a death by suicide in a community, they have what they call postvention. So they have individuals within the chapter who will, help the family, through those struggles and through that aftermath. School districts now, for many, many years, just now, for many years, have a crisis team to respond to a death by suicide from a young person, and that's part of the postvention. So you have the prevention, and that's the work with the training, etc. And then you have the postvention, which is the team that comes out to help those who have been impacted in an immediate way, and add brochures and educational programming and training.
Yeah.
Do just that.
Okay, so that's good. So guys, there are resources out there. And even though I think some of us that still watch the news without overconsumption, because you can consume something no matter what it is too much. I think we would feel more in tune, and in hope if they had follow-up stories that told us how people were doing after some of these massive death by suicide.
I know. Yeah.
But we don't.
Yeah.
We might have one or two, but we never seem to get a follow-up. And so you just feel desperate, and despair can set in if you don't have healthy boundaries or outlets, because all we're left with is the gory detail, and that's it. There's no follow-up. And so it's great to know that these resources are out there, and that they're reachable, they're within reach. Humans need tangible. We need to be able to touch it, see it, smell it, feel it, know it's there, sometimes before we accept the reality of it. So I thank you for that message of hope, the conversation of hope we've had today that says these things are organic and now a part of our everyday. Here's where you go to find the information because it's no longer hidden. We thank you for that, because for me, that was huge. One other point before we go into the rise and fall, we've mentioned the word depression and anxiety several times. Anxiety and depression come on different levels, but I want to say this, the commonality, and I know this for a fact for the work that I do with disabled, sadness is the starter. I mean, that little word right there, when it grows bigger than who you are, that you see no longer yourself, but only that word and feel only that word, you have entered in or on your way entering into a level of anxiety or depression. Sad starts it. So do not ignore sad. I didn't say not to feel it. That would be incorrect for me to say that. We all feel sad. But when it is bigger than you, and it is ever present, and it is all that you can touch, smell, see, or taste, get help. Get help. It starts with sad. Just the air of caution. Miss Pat, any finishing word before we go to rise and fall?
Well, thank you for allowing me to come on to the podcast to talk about this most important topic. This has been really a rich conversation. Each interview, each session, each meeting that I have with different people, I just learned so much. And I've learned so much in this short 60 minutes.
Thank you.
about how, the risers, I
Yes.
love that. I love that. And then, how you bring in the word of the day, the quote of the day, and how that allows you to really think about how does that quote, how does that word impact your life? Where does it show up in
Yes.
your whole spectrum of your life? And then you can begin to move, and then you really begin to move your life differently, right?
Yes.
And I think that's the purpose
Yes.
of this podcast, because it's all about self-development. So here
Yes.
we talked about suicide and suicide prevention and mental health awareness, but at the same time, we are also, that word hope, right? That word allows us to think about things other than, well, it gives us a way to move forward,
Yes.
right? And it gives us a way to move forward, and then just bring hope,
Yes.
just bringing hope to everyone's life. And I think for me, for the past 4 years, that's my intentionality.
Oh, I
That's
love it.
my goal, and bringing it far and wide, from the Westchester Mid-Hudson region, across the state of New York, connecting with other AFSP chapters across the state, connecting with the Suicide Prevention Resource Center, up in Syracuse, and even the OMH office and in Albany, and making sure that we're all aligned
Yes.
to this important work, and that we don't work in silos, but we work together
Yes.
to reduce those numbers in an intentional way. When
Woo.
Pat White walks in the room, people are listening,
Yes.
right? People are listening, and they take it in, and they go back and they develop their action plan, and they come back to me and say, Miss Pat, what you said was powerful. Let me tell you what I've done
Yes.
since I've seen you. And that's what brings me joy.
Yes. Yes.
And that's what brings me joy. Thank you so much.
Oh, our pleasure. Miss Sounds, take us to rise and fall as we end.
So, Miss Pat, what we like to do is end off on a reflective segment called Rise and Fall. And so, what we like to do is reflect on all that we spoke about and just put it into two categories. The one reflection we're going to have is rise, which is what did I learn today in this conversation that I will continue to let rise in my life, that I will continue to bring up and live out. And then the other part is the fall, which is after having this conversation, what am I going to let go of in my life that I once thought, that I once believed, but this conversation is making me think a little bit differently now, and I don't think that serves me in my life anymore. Let me start off. I'm gonna start it off with this one. I think that one of the things I've heard in this conversation that will stick with me is that your life doesn't have to matter to the whole entire world for it to matter to someone. That people aren't people who have lost their lives in families that have regarded them highly. It really impacts those spaces and people's lives in just community, small community, are very valuable to one another. And so, as we have these conversations about suicide prevention and um, mental health and the things that people struggle with, we should highlight the things that are commonly spoken about worldwide, but I think we should also zoom out a little bit to recognize the everyday common people that struggle. And it's just going to cause me to be more mindful of that. What does not serve me anymore that I'll let fall after this conversation I think is this this belief that, you know, if you there's a certain way your life, there are certain struggles you have in your life that lead to suicide. You
Yeah.
know, that it's just limited to this, and then either I'm good if I don't, if I don't struggle with these things, I'm good, or the people around me, yeah, I think they're good too. Like, not living in that bubble of it can't happen, or can't, can't um exist in your vicinity in any way, but to be equipped and prepared if it does, right? To have a answer, a response, a better, dialogue with people, deeper dialogue with people in my life, and not just think that it only happens to certain people. So, I ask you, Miss Pat, what do you think? What are your rise and your fall?
Well, my rise today is the going back to what I said earlier about the word of the day and the quote. That's what I got from this conversation, and how that quote then threads in all of the work that we do individually and we do as a group. And what I plan to do, and which I actually started doing a couple of months ago as the new year opened up, in these community meetings I am a part of. I went to them. I went to the one community meeting and asked them to think about their word for the year,
Mm.
and people, was brave enough to share. Some people may not have even understood what I meant. So that's one thing. But those that did know, they were brave enough to share with us what their word was and how they were going to use that word throughout the year. So I think what I'm going to do is add the quote
Mm.
to the conversation. So when and I'm going to start that in May, which is
Yes.
May is Mental Health Month.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I'm going to rise this theme that you guys have about the word of the day, the quote of the day. I'm going to tell them about raised voices as my
Yes.
way of promoting you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bring them to your podcast and then have them begin to think about those quotes. So
Yes.
what I'm going to need from you is send me a couple of quotes
Yes.
that I can then share with this larger group that I'm on Zoom with once a month. At least, we've got these meetings 8 times within a month. I'll go to 1 or
Yes.
2 meetings and I'll share that.
Absolutely.
So
Thank you.
that's my rise and that's my plan of action. I think my fall, as I started this conversation, right? As I started this conversation an hour ago, I didn't need to be perfect,
Mm.
right? I didn't always need to, I didn't have to be perfect in the preparation of the
Yes.
conversation because it was just natural. It was organic. And so that's what I got. That way you
Yeah.
don't have to be perfect, and accept, if you do misstep, it's
Yeah.
really okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Guess what? Because people have expectations of you, but they're not going to judge you
Yes.
for what you may not have delivered.
Yes. Yes.
So that's my rise and that's my fall.
Wow.
Love
I
that.
love that. Oh my goodness. Rise for me is to continue to ask hard questions. Got to keep doing that. Sometimes you feel like you're being annoying or you're being overly curious. But these conversations we're having on Raised Voices would not have happened if I didn't ask some questions. I want to keep rising and asking the questions. Can't stifle the questions, because if I do that, then I am supporting the silence I told you guys to break. So I got to take my own medicine. Sometimes you just got to. And the fall is, I'm going to join Miss Sounds in her fall. I think that was so good because I was thinking of that. Suicide is faceless in terms of me trying to determine which face it should wear. It wears all the faces. As sad as that is, it wears all the faces. And so be as prepared as you can if you have to have that conversation to try to save someone's life. Don't think you know what it's going to always look like.
Mm-hmm.
You may not. But gear up anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's my fall.
Amazing.
Amazing. And so powerful. Again, not knowing can really, not knowing can really move to this whole these myths, because you don't know.
Yes.
And just the fact that in this hour and in your own personal research, those were the falls.
Yeah.
Those are the rise and falls on this conversation.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes.
Goal achieved.
Woo!
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Listen, we're going to have Miss Pat back at another time. Her
was
episode is going to fall in the later month of May, going into Father's Day. We purposely want to do that. So that's when you'll see this episode. So we are asking for grace, kindness, love, and support. It is scheduled and ordained to be at that time. So as we wrap up, Miss Sounds, please tell us what the invitation is here on Raised Voices.
Absolutely. Well, risers, all right. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend and not be a freeloader. Okay. We need you to join the casa, subscribe to our channel, listen to our podcast. We are on all your favorite podcast platforms. Spotify, we are on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. So subscribe, comment, like, share. Okay. And join us on this journey of resilience, celebration, and growth. We're just having one empowering conversation at a time to change the world.
And as you know, we always tell you guys that your potential is limitless. That is the hope that we've been talking about, even in today's conversation. You got potential. Baby, investigate it. You got it. It's there. Keep digging it up because it's there. And only you can stop it from showing up. And we want you to always know growth, personal development, you becoming a better you. Oh, there's no gates on that thing. There's no fence. Boundless. Get it. It's yours. The planet is big enough. Stay here a little while longer and do what you got to do. I want you to stay inspired. I want you to do it healthy. What we talked about today connects to health. And we told you that true wealth is good health. Be smart about it. Be smart about it. You don't got to go to school to be smart. Be smart about it. Stay inspired. Stay empowered. Empowered means to dream. Dare to dream. Dare to dream multiple dreams. Keep thriving. Yeah, you at surviving right now, but dream long enough, you'll be above survival. And then you get to pull somebody up. I ain't going to stop asking you. That's just how it is. I'm going to keep asking you because that's what I'm supposed to do. What are they to remember, Miss Sound?
Remember to raise your voice, to edify, to uplift, to empower, but don't
raise your voice to annihilate or to destroy. We can speak to things that try to keep us bound, even without yelling. Oh, yes, you can. You don't believe it? I'll believe it till you do, because I'm not letting you out. I'm not letting you out of the hope. So I'll believe until you believe. I want you to be good and kind to yourself. It's not about a treat. It's about speaking well to your own self, even if you don't hear it from outside. I said it. Figure it out. This is the one time I'm going to ask you to fake it until it becomes real. Speak the dreams before they become real, before you see the way or know that there is a way. Say that you are beautiful, whether you believe you're beautiful. Say that you are handsome, you are a prince, even before you become one. I promise you, long enough will make it a reality. Be kind to yourself, especially today. And we are hoping you will come back to speak with us, to join us, to listen, but to share and comment. We don't want to be in this by ourselves. We did not do this publicly to be here alone. Come out of the darkness. Join the conversation. I don't care if you listen for 2 minutes a day. I'll take it. I'll take it. Listen, we love y'all, and we don't say it just for it to be words. We want our community to know that we love being Black, we love being women, we love being in the community, we love being on the planet no matter what it brings our way, no matter the struggles. We have planned to keep going through the struggles and be all right. Will you join us? Invitation is open. We appreciate you guys. Miss Pat will be back at another time. You guys come back. Have a brilliant day. I said it. Whatever your brilliance is, let it shine. Have a great rest of your day. Great weekend. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye now. Take care.